He subsequently supported the stimulus bill. I opposed the stimulus bill. I oppose it because I don't think it stimulates the economy, and I don't think it has stimulated the economy. Here in Connecticut, $3.2 billion came to us as part of stimulus. 1.2 went to Medicaid. Now that's a program that's important to some folks, but it's a government-to-government program. It doesn't stimulate the economy. $800 million went to education. Some of it will come to the towns, some will not. But it's government-to-government-to-government. A relatively small amount, only 30% of the stimulus package got into the private sector in any form, and none of it came to small business. And yet small business is responsible for most of the jobs and most of the economy that we enjoy here in Connecticut. 54% of all businesses in Connecticut are 4 or less employees. 73% of all businesses in Connecticut are 9 or less employees. Here in Connecticut, nationwide, 97% of all businesses are less than 20 employees. And in my travels around the state, I've had difficulty finding any small business that has benefited from the stimulus package, and I would ask here tonight, is there anyone here who works for a business, 20 or less employees, that can tell me what they got under stimulus? Anybody? Please raise your hand. Anybody?
Hot air.
What'd you get?
Hot air.
Hot air! Nothing. A 3-ring sign, and I don't mean Rheingold. Nothing. That's right. That's right. They missed the boat. And yet small business is where the jobs are. Small business is embedded in our community. Small business is where you get feedback into the community, where you get contributions to the community center, where you get ball teams sponsored for a Little League, where the Scouts get sponsorship for their programs. Small business doesn't relocate to China, or Mexico, or Canada, or somewhere else where the stimulus missed the boat. The latest of the long line is the government-run healthcare. I won't call it reform because I don't believe it reforms healthcare. If we truly wanted to reform healthcare, we would talk about cost containment. We would talk about access. We'd talk about competition across state lines. We'd talk about association health plans so that small businesses could associate to purchase health insurance to their benefit, something that they have not been allowed to do because of Democrat obstruction. And then the latest of concern to me, particularly because of my background as a soldier and as a spy, is the bringing of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed to New York City for a civilian trial. The mastermind of 9/11, who murdered 3,000 Americans, innocent Americans, unsuspecting Americans, Americans not in uniform, an attack that I feel is far worse than Pearl Harbor because at least Pearl Harbor was a sovereign nation, identified as a sovereign nation, attacking the war machine of another sovereign nation. And they're going to bring this guy to New York City, a few blocks from Ground Zero. They're going to bring this guy to a city in which my daughter was living on 9/11, in West Village, in an apartment she never got back into. 2 of her best friends killed because they were on the 105th floor, and thousands of other families terrorized and dispossessed of their loved ones. And he's willing to accept a military trial, a tribunal. And the cost of this is $500 million, not $75 million. I met a week ago with Bo Deedle Associates, a security officer, a former New York City policeman, who says this is going to cost $200 million a year, it's going to take 2 years. And it's wrong, and I think it's wrong. And so you see, Senator Dodd has a lot more than just a bad mortgage and a cottage to deal with, and the Democrat candidate has a lot more than that to deal with. And for those of you, or those out there who think that the appearance of Attorney General Blumenthal dramatically changes the race, I disagree. I disagree. The Competitive Enterprise Institute lists the nation's top 10 worst state attorneys general. Does anyone want to venture a guess as to who might be on this list? Maybe. Anybody want to venture a guess as to exactly where he is on the list? I will tell you that Elliot Spitzer is on the list, so there's a lot of competition here. Anybody, sir, you raise your hand.
First.
He's number one. He is number one. On the Competitive Enterprise Institute, look it up online, check it out. They do the top 10. He's got half a dozen pages on why he is, from an economic standpoint, from a business standpoint, from a job standpoint, the worst Attorney General in America. And there's another document that you can look at, the U.S. Tort Liability Index, with an introduction by Jeb Bush of Florida, who is actually supporting me in this effort. And what he points out in his introduction, which is very obvious to us all, that the legal climate of a state hurts its economy. Spiraling litigation costs limit job creation. We are not going to eliminate torts. Torts are important if people are injured, if people are wronged, if people are damaged. But the tort system in a state can be efficient or inefficient. It can be fair or unfair. It can be operative or not operative. And this publication ranks states on the basis of torts. Now, I served as business advocate for the state of Connecticut for 2 years. We need job creation in this state. And job creation comes through a friendly economic environment for the private sector. That's what we need. That's what we want. And yet, where is Connecticut when it comes to its litigious nature as a state? Well, we're ranked anywhere from 38 to 44th. That's not good enough. We're not going to rebuild our economy with that. And if the Attorney General, Blumenthal, is the Democrat candidate for the U.S. Senate seat in the fall, he's going to have to answer to his activities over the last 20 years as to why he has not been constructive in assisting in building a congenial business climate for the business community and helping create jobs through that process. That report points out beyond a reasonable doubt that an adverse tort climate in any state inhibits job creation, in fact, can be directly responsible for the lack of job growth. Let me draw my thoughts together by saying this. We're in a recession. Our country has had recessions before. We are in an adverse economic climate. We've had that before. We have a deeper recession, I believe, than we would otherwise have because of government interference with the process, government invasion of the process, government takeover of the process, when in fact a lightening up might be more beneficial. In the recession of 2001-2003, I voted for tax cuts, not tax increases. I voted for expensing small equipment purchases for small business up to $250,000 to create an incentive to buy. And with that incentive to buy, to create an incentive to produce, and to sell, and to train, and to maintain. And as small businesses made decisions at the small business grassroots level to buy this machine or that machine or that machine, they made a judgment themselves, not some commissar in Washington, D.C. making a judgment on the macroeconomic scale. And all of those millions of decisions across the country brought us out of that recession and actually increased the productivity of the companies that bought new product. So I think there's a reasonable way that we've done it. We did it that way under President Kennedy. We did it that way under President Reagan. We did it that way under President Bush. And there's no reason why we can't do it that way now and into the future. The state of Connecticut is an extraordinary resource, but we need to get the government out of the way.